Are we ready for a panel? People are going to come running up here and they're going to answer your excellent questions that you are asking in the app. There's a lot going on there in the app. You can like a question if you agree with it, so that bumps it up the list. Feel free to come forward if you know you're on this panel, because I will tell you that they are going to be led by Erina Watene, tēnā rawa atu koe. Also we have Tame Malcolm, Kitty Joy Wallace, Jane Kitson and Aroha Mead, the person who knows where she's going. Tēnā rawa atu koe, mau te ara e para. So today, as we have concluded the presentations, to complete this Whakamana discussion, we're going to invite on stage this panel, including our previous keynote speakers, Tame, John Reid, Aroha Mead as well, Jane Kitson, to discuss with our chair, Erina, about the theme of Whakamana, helping New Zealanders protect our precious environment and what changes give them cause for hope for enabling more New Zealanders, including rangatahi especially, to value and protect our biological heritage. So if you have any questions, please submit those via the app by clicking Q&A polls if you're looking for it, and you can also like a question, as I say, to bump it up there. But now we give it over to our panel. Please give them your attention and your appreciation. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tuatahi ki a koutou Ngāti Toa rangatira, te Aotearoa whānui, aku huanga o Ngāti Raukawa, tēnā rawa atu koutou. Huri noa ki a koutou, kua tai mai nei, I tēnei rā, tēnā koutou, tēnā rawa atu koutou katoa. Morena everybody. As Stacey has said, I'm Erina Watene from the Waikato, and just a quick shout out to all of the Waikato and Waipa River iwi whānau that are here today as well. Thank you for coming. I'm part of the challenge team as the Pouputāio, and I've been involved with the challenge for a few years now, having also served on the Kāhui Māori and Mana Rangatira previously. And just before we get started, because it's been a long session, I just want everyone to etu, come on, up whānau. Hands up, follow me, hands up. Hands to the left, hands to the right, hands down. Right hand up, pull it back. On 3, push it forward as fast as you can. 3, 2, 1, oh, yeah. Thank you for that mana wave. Now I feel topped up for the last half hour of the session. It was kind of a good mana wave, but okay, it's my privilege now to welcome the thought leaders and speakers for our first panel discussion this morning. You've already heard from 3 of them, and so it's welcome back to our keynote speaker, Tame. You've heard from Dr. Jane Kitson and also Dr. John Reid, and their full bios are in the app, so feel free to check that out. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Aroha Mead, although she needs no introduction. Aroha is pretty much a legend, full stop, that's her introduction. No, she's of Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Porou and Tūhourangi descent. She is a highly respected nationally and internationally renowned thought leader. For the past 5 years, she has been part of the Biological Heritage National Science Challenge, working on the Māori community conservation map, providing webinars about Y262 issues, and she also led the publication of When the Crown Controls Mātauranga. So if you don't have a copy of that, I'm sure there'll be some available at the back. So welcome to all of our panel members this morning. We've got all of the questions off the app, so I'm going to surprise them with some of those. But first, and rather than taking up too much of their time, I'd like to invite each of the panellists probably just to provide your top insights, thoughts and learnings around Whakamana, the theme of this session, and then we'll head on into the questions after that. So I think we'll just start with Tame. Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou. We were having a discussion on where we'd start, and I was saying you probably should start down there. I don't know why. Engari, I'm not sure this is going to answer the pātai, but before coming up I thought, what lessons can we take from the challenge? And having heard some of the kai kōrero before me, having been involved in the challenge and seeing some of the cool stuff that's happened, I struggled to really boil it down to 1 or 2 things. But then I remembered sort of the whakapapa of the challenges, and I takia mai ēnei whakaaro ihia ka ahu atu hoki kihia. And the challenges sort of, I wasn't there, I'm not that old, but they sort of encourage everyone to say, what are the big challenges that Aotearoa is facing, and how do we focus on that? And with that, I think the one thing we can take from the challenge in terms of the future way forward is what are our big challenges? What do we need to focus on? I know in my household, for instance, there's always sort of priorities on what playground we go to or where we should go get ice cream, but thinking about what are the things that matter the most. And I think if we expand that to the rest of Aotearoa, what are our big challenges for the future? By taking that approach, it forces us to collaborate, like we have done through the challenges, forces us to get innovative on not only how we work together, but also what are the solutions. And also just being more efficient with the limited resources that New Zealand does have. So if there's one thing I would take in terms of, and I don't even know how it fits with the Whakamana, but as I was walking up, I just thought it's the focus on the big challenges and what are our big challenges, and using that to sort of guide any decision making. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou. I'm very happy to be in this intergenerational couch. We're 3 generations here. And first of all, I just want to congratulate all of you. Like, just listening to the presentations this morning, what an amazing amount of work. All that building of the right teams to deliver the right things is just incredible, and it's just awesome to be part of this. One of the things about heritage is that there is no end point. There is no one specific goal that we're all working towards. As a generation, we have the minimum responsibility of not causing harm in our lifetime to the heritage we pass to future generations. At the top scale, we will have enhanced the heritage that we pass on. But it's an ongoing job. As I said, there's no end point, and I think the best thing that we can do to empower the next generation is to let them know that there is no end point. They're not fighting towards one particular goal. It's a multifaceted, highly complex, and no one is expected to do it all. We focus on the things we're good at, and we try and do really well in those areas. And I've just been sort of reflecting on the state of our biodiversity, as one does in this government term in particular. And sad to say that within, like, one of the findings of the global assessment on the state of the world's biodiversity that was undertaken by IPBES was to say that although there has been damage to the environment and to biodiversity over time, that in this past 50 years, which is our time, the scale of that damage has just been unprecedented. So unfortunately, in the scale of intergenerational contributions, we're not looking good. So we have a lot more work that we have to do, and we do it whether we're in an empowering, enabling environment or whether we're not. We do it because it's a thing, it's what we have to do, and we find creative ways of being able to achieve things. So Whakamana is mostly, for me, it's about giving ourselves encouragement, support, to celebrate the little steps, but to know that we're part of something much bigger and that we just have to carry on and continue. Kia ora. Oh, you have your own.
So one of the questions that was given to me for this panel was what changes give you hope for the future? But I'd like to actually start at an international level, or changes that are happening internationally. It's going to sound a little bit dry, but I think it's important. The first thing is the Kunming Biodiversity Framework was developed, of which New Zealand's a signatory. What that requires is all businesses, investors, banks in New Zealand to report on their biodiversity impact by 2030. I mean, whether the government goes ahead with this or not, or manages to meet its international obligations or not is another question. But what that does mean is that what it means is that we're going to enter, hopefully, a world of radical transparency. That's where the impact of every commercial entity in the country, we'll be able to see their impact. We'll be able to measure and understand their impact. That's the first thing. The second thing is the development of the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures. This is all the big companies around the world coming together, putting another framework together which is quite similar. Now, just what it means is that when you do your accounting every year, you have your financial disclosure, in terms of whether you're making a profit or not, but it also requires you to say what your impact on biodiversity is. Now, what that means is that a lot of these companies, when they look at their score sheet for biodiversity, it means they're going to run into some problems. And what is also emerging alongside this is, of course, biodiversity credit markets and so forth. They're going to have to start putting money into restoring biodiversity. And we already saw that this morning with Merino and Zed and some of their initiatives where they're getting their customers to invest back on the ground. What this means is that, and what the Science Challenge enabled us to do, was to start to look how to measure this so we can actually verify what's happening on the ground. This has the potential to lead to massive transformations, in particular attracting funding and capital, not just inside New Zealand but abroad, to actually bring about the transformations we're looking to have happen. The real change is going to be driven through thousands and thousands of people acting on the ground. But we need to know what to do, where to do it, how to do it, but most of all we need to be resourced to do it. So for me, with collectively in the room, with the amount of knowledge, expertise, we've heard all the different forms of expertise here so far this morning, bringing that together to catalyse that type of action for change, to be able to enable that to happen, is where I see considerable hope. And just one more thing, because I'm going on a little bit, is the capacity of iwi, and we've seen the interconnected thinking. We've seen them leading within their catchments, within their takiwa, rohi, initiatives, bringing together their communities. They're bringing the farming community together. They're bringing, as we saw earlier, schools and so forth. It's that collaborative action, and I think that way of thinking is fundamental to catalysing change, and we're seeing it everywhere. So I've got incredible hope, but like we've had highlighted, it's taken a long time to get to this point of decline, and hopefully we're at a turning point.
Kia ora. Firstly, I need to say how much of a fangirl I am of all these people in the panel. I come from a natural habitat of sitting next to an awa and my waders or gumboots, and here I am in this power panel. So just say kia ora to all of you. That's incredible. I never thought I would be sitting in this chair. I'm going to pick up the hope component of it. I've had amazing experience. I'm not as long in the challenge as some of my fellow panellists. I'm a later recruit than Tranche 2, and so managed to jump in a project which you've heard about with Pike, and being able to hang out outside my silo and with environmental psychologists, which I never thought I would ever do, which was fantastic, but also hang out very community-based in other projects as well. And for me, it's the connection to community that the challenge has brought, and the connection to each other in multiple different ways of thinking brings me hope going forward, in the sense that we don't often get to hang with all these different peeps. We, as Dion pointed out, as I am an ecologist by training too, we often have little silos, where actually here we are allowed to play in a big box of anything that's possible, and which for me has been very exciting, and hopefully something that can be carried on to whatever 2.2 or 2.3 or whatever crazy and ambitious mayhem that can do, because I see it has actually created a lot of good with those connections. And secondly, I'm going to speak as a mama of two children that are about, well, have hit their teenage years. One is about to turn 18. That's terrifying. And working with my mahi is often working at home, working with my own whānau or with my own peeps in Murahuku, and they get to come to the wānanga and they get to have that experience of connecting to who they are, which I think is probably the most empowering thing to do, is connect to your community, not realising that other people can tell them what to do and they will listen to them and not me, but that intergenerational learning. So that it's quite fitting to have a couch with intergenerational, because I think that is a biggest asset, connecting to who we are, connecting to our community, connecting to our wider community. And I think that's where that empowerment, not only with the knowledge that brings, but the knowledge that the community brings with them. Kia ora.
Thank you for those insights. So moving to some of the questions from the app, I'll try and give you all one each rather than all answer the same ones. So this one's for John. It's Eco Index. Kia ora. I'm curious why 15%? Is that self-sustaining, achievable or aspirational?
It's the most often asked question. So the first thing is we're clear that everything that currently exists needs to be protected. But when we look at the 15% figure itself has come from, based on the science literature around a sort of a critical threshold of which once you drop below 15% of a particular ecosystem type, then you start to get a radical drop in biodiversity. So that's kind of where the 15% figure. There's a debate around that. Some say that it needs to be, more around the 20, 25%. But we started with 15. It's something that can shift. The reason we started with 15 because it was the most palatable figure, but also a figure that also had some science behind it. So, because if we're wanting to shift change, particularly across our landowners, our land managers, across our landscape, those many thousands, we need to start with goals that are realistic and doable. And so if you start at that point, then you start to build momentum. Just to clarify also, the 15% figure applies to every ecosystem within a catchment level. So that means that particularly our lowland catchments, with our lowland forests, our wetlands and so forth, that's where you'll see significant, with that 15% figure, if those targets were to be reached, you'd see significant changes in our lowland areas, and particularly getting connectivity from mountains to the sea and getting stepping stones through landscapes and so forth to enhance the overarching, to meet those overarching thresholds for biodiversity enhancement. But 15% is the minimum figure. I know government's sitting around 10%, and that's not even with per ecosystem. That's just native biodiversity, just any ecosystem. So it's significantly higher than the current national settings. So, hopefully that answers that question.
Kia ora. The next question, and I think you all might have touched on this earlier in your first 5-minute session, but what advice would you give to other researchers towards ensuring research can empower and whakamana haukainga, ahikaroa, and local knowledge holders? If anyone wants to add to that kōrero, or we can move on to the next question.
Kia ora, thank you for that question. I think what we're learning and what we're seeing is that the best type of community research actually starts with the community themselves. They pose the question or the problem, and then we simply use our skills to assist them to do the research. So that notion of being a great researcher and independently coming up with ideas and then going out there and finding a community who is willing to take your idea, I think those days are coming to an end, or they need to be moving towards an end and looking at something that's far more collaborative. Because my own experience from working that way is that the benefit you get as a researcher for having done something that they value it's such a wonderful feeling. Like you wouldn't ever want to go back to another way of doing research.
I've got one for Tame. Kia ora, Tame. With threats to te reo Māori in the news, how important is ensuring the mauri of te reo to the work to ensure the mauri of mātauranga Māori?
Tēnā koe, hei tuku tēnei pātai mai. I'm still learning te reo, so please don't think that I'm a real expert. I'm still on my journey. Like this fella, he's got way better reo than I have. But I think one of the best things I think that happened in the revitalisation of te reo was giving the mana back of that revitalisation to Māori. There was an assumed control over that revitalisation by Crown agencies sort of decades ago, and then it wasn't no turning point, but over time realised that by Māori taking the lead on this, there was far better outcomes. And it's still a long way off. The journey will still keep going for generations to come. When this fella can sort of walk into a room and everyone can understand him in te reo, I think that would be a future state. But it goes back to what Aroha was saying as well, that is a ground-up approach. That's where you see the greatest benefits, rather than te reo needs saving, we're going to go in and save it because we're a government agency, and that's us and DOC. We know that our place at Te Papatawhai to support te reo is actually working with communities. What do they want to see? Do they want to see Māori signs? Do they want to see material translated? It's there that we see them wanting to really engage with us. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tame, you're popular because there's another question for you. What, in your view, does bringing other knowledges... Wow, you just shifted it. Aaron, never mind, that one's gone.
Yeah, but there's still another one.
Okay, we'll go with the next one. Tame... Sorry, they keep removing the questions. Keep it still, guys. It's not going to move. Okay, kia ora.
What, in your view, does bringing other knowledges, e.g. Western science, together with mātauranga, do to the mauri of mātauranga and the outcomes from the use of that knowledge connection? Hey, Kati. That's his Te Aroha side wanting to get the mic, eh? Humble. Kati-san. I think we've got to start from a position that mātauranga, we think, firstly, people think of it as a product. It's an answer, but let's remember mātauranga is a process. It helps find a solution. It's not the solution. And I grew up at a kura where we were taught mātauranga is science. So mātauranga takes in everything. So when our tūpuna first arrived here in Aotearoa, they brought with them a knowledge system from Hawaii. Hey, tauira as an example. On the islands, birds were often on a migratory path, so you'd take whatever bird you could, harvest them and eat them. They applied that same mātauranga here and then realised it wasn't fit for purpose, so they changed. They changed the way we sort of harvest manu. So as we evolved in this new land, so did our mātauranga. Now we have a new paradigm introduced to the system, i.e. Western science. Mātauranga adapts and evolves to incorporate that. So if anything, I think, is what can science learn from mātauranga, is just to be more inclusive. I mean, at one stage, science was very much restricted to only certain types of people could study it, whereas, nowadays we're knowing that science is for everyone. And so the same with mātauranga.
I'm just going to pop into Tame's question because this notion of Western science has triggered me. So one of the many amazing reports that's been generated out of IPBES is their whole typology that they created around the different value systems that operate all around the world in relation to how you make decisions about the environment and development. And because we get told that this is like Western science versus Indigenous knowledge, as if these are the only knowledge systems that exist. What IPBES came up with through their global assessment was 33 different types of value systems that are operating all across the world. This is all cultures, all peoples, all religions. 33 different value systems. And what I'd like to see in the future is that we break down this notion of Western science as if it exists all by itself, and it's sort of this or something else as this typology of only two. It's not. There's multiple there's multiple knowledge systems, and we're only just beginning to learn about how others in like developing countries, in regions that we're not so familiar with, how they tackle the same problems that we're tackling. It's when all those knowledge systems come together that we're really going to come up with the most innovative solutions. Sorry, but Western science triggers me.
Kia ora. And one last question, and I'll pose this to Jane. Moving forward and knowing what you know now, if you were to stand up a new research program or project, how would you build in empowering our communities right from the start? I mean, some of the tips have been mentioned already, but in case you had any new ones.
Well, we are trying to develop a new one from what we've been working with the Purukino catchment in Southland, and that again is working with the community containing the catchment, but also with whānau from Whakamana, which, shout out, that's my runanga. So it's up really from the base of the relationships, and relationship is key, and we've heard that from many of the talks today with Nathan and Dion, relationships with place, relationships to each other, and that's where the power is, and that's where the starting point is. Hard to get funding for, so anyone has funding that can give to us for that, please. But that's where we're trying to start with bringing in our colleagues and people that we worked with and trust, and have that as the core and the heart of it.
Unfortunately, our time has flown so quickly, and I see Stacey standing to the side to hustle us off. So I just wanted to thank our panellists for their insightful kōrero. If you have any further pātai, please don't hesitate to hit them up in the lunch break. I'm sure they would love to sit and talk with you and answer all of your questions. And with that, I'll hand back to Stacey. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora. Actually, Erina, because you started us off so well, could we get everyone on this stage to please send us into our lunch with a mana wave? Okay, so the mana wave, if you've ever stopped anywhere in New Zealand and a road worker has given you the go-ahead, you should know what a mana wave is. Maybe you didn't know it was called a mana wave. Lead us, Erina, in our mana wave. Are you ready? Everyone from the stage, are you ready? Etu, great big, tahirua torewha. Much mana, much mana. Kia ora koutou katoa, awesome panel. Yes, yeah. That's the only word. Ka ahua te tātou ki te wā kai nei anei. Mene paena ki a koutou aku rangatira kua tono au I te tamaiti nei a kai whare ki te tuku I tā tātou karakia kai. Kei te pai? When we're talking about intergenerational change, I have a young man who is our kai karakia for our kai to make sure it's really delicious. Koe rite mai koe? Ai.
Ko ai tēnei tūake nei, ko kai whare taku ingoa.
Tuku karakia mo te kai, son.
E rongo mai ngā te wei ki te tinana hei o ranga aueke, tahi e.